a single tax rate. This shows a 10% shift. And you can see at the bottom end, the dollars aren't too great, but as you move up the scale, the dollars increase greatly. And that's at the maximum. And you can see that on the far end, there's a tremendous shift. Now, if you'd like, Mr. Simmons can go into valuation trends within town. Go for it. Please.
Thank you. First off, I want to introduce two board members who are here tonight. On my left, or on your left, is Alan Capone. He's the chairman of the Board of Assessors for the town of North Reading. And on his left is Sebastian Tyne Italiano, who is the current president of the Massachusetts Association of Assessing Officers for the Commonwealth, and is also a member of the Board of Assessors. I didn't change that slide either. Valuation trends, it should read from 1999 to 2003. Basic assumptions in valuation. And the basic assumption is market value, and this should be changed to January 1st, 2002 rather than January 1st, 2001. That's our as-of date. We calculate all values, or base all values, based on a valuation date of January 1st, 2002 for FY 2003. And we consider three approaches to value: the cost approach, direct sales comparison approach, and income approach. And very simply, definition of market value is the most probable selling price which a property should bring in a competitive open market. There are several criteria to market value. The buyer and seller are typically motivated, that both parties are well informed, well advised, and acting in what they consider their own best interests, that a reasonable time is allowed in exposure to the market, and payments are made in terms of cash. What I'm getting at by these slides is I want everybody to know that when we assess properties, we're looking at the typical sales price. We're not looking at a high opportunistic value or an overly pessimistic value. We're trying to be accurate in what we're doing. Okay, valuation trends. This year we've increased valuations across the board approximately 5 to 6%. Since 2001 for single-family homes, we started with the value down here between 125 and 150, and now you'll find that valuations, assessed values for single-family homes are on average up to around 250, between 250 and 300. And this trends at one home in town. Actually, a person who's in this room right now. In 1998, this home was valued at around 125, and it's currently valued, we're trying to look at it, not a typical home, but a home, a single-family home, at around 275. Taxation on that house, or the rate trends for the entire town. Conversely, as values have gone up, that tends to force the rate down. We started in 1998 with a rate around $17 per thousand. And currently, you know, this year we're around $2.09 per thousand. So there's been a fairly consistent drop in the rate over time as values have been increased. For the single-family home, the taxation has increased. On this home specifically, it went from around just about $2,300 up to just below $3,100 currently over time. For commercial properties have tended to go up less quickly, and that tends to be a chronic problem. With the primarily residential community, you have a constant shift or reallocation of taxes off of commercial properties and onto residential properties, because the commercial properties don't tend to go up as quickly in the residential community as residential properties do. At least in this market, that's been true. Yes.
Could you go back to that slide?
I hope I can see backspace. Whoops. Here we go.
Thank you.
Okay. The taxation on commercial properties therefore has remained at a relatively constant rate. It's fluctuated less dramatically than homes has. It has gone up, or it has tended to go up, but also it also has tended to go down a little bit. So one tends to be watching the other up. As far as allocation goes, the density or the complexion of the community commercially has remained basically the same in the last 2 years. We have approximately 85% residential properties. We have 7% commercial properties, 7% industrial properties, and about 1% personal property. And that constitutes the entire valuation of the town. And that's basically it on valuation.
Questions from the board?
Thank you for the numbers in my calculator. The commercial property that you showed, is that a sample commercial
Yes,
property?
it's a commercial property.
as
yes.
well?
Yep, property on Main Street.
Okay, I'd like to make an observation, but if you bear with me, I'm just gonna punch, grab my calculator please, one more time. One more number, sorry. Okay, just an observation, not a question so much, that I'd like to say out loud. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I look at those samples and sort of pick the numbers off the grid, it looked like in 1998 that sample single-family home was valued at, what did you say, 135 or 175?
We can go back to that.
I just wanted to check that.
Single-family home was in 1998 was worth a little bit below 150.
Okay, so I had it at 135 just based on that graph.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
So I just would just generally like to make some observations about the value of property versus what I saw happen to the tax rate over those past 5 years. And if anybody has a comment on it. That single-family home grew in value by 103%. The amount of its tax bill grew by 34%. Because I know that increasing tax bills have been a great concern to the community, but also comparing that to the value of the home, how much that's increased. The sample commercial property has increased by 35%. And that's just my sort of picking your data points off the graph. The tax bill on that sample commercial property looks to me like it's decreased by 2.3%. And I just want to see if that's accurate, because I think those are really just very interesting numbers to look at.
You have a starting point of between 37 and 3,900
Yeah, I had
and an
that at
ending point
3,800.
around 38.
Yeah, I had that at 3,800 for 1998 and 3,710 for 2003. So I just think that's striking values to how much the tax bills have increased, and it's not a question, it's a striking comparison. That's all, I don't have a question actually.
I'm also on the board. Question at this time? No. I'll open it up to the public question. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on what Marcy just brought up, and I brought it up last year, if you remember, at the tax classification meeting last year. When we had the revals in town, the residential properties went up substantially, so that the overall revenue coming into the community, it was 85% coming from residential properties and 15% from commercial properties, whereas prior to last year, it was 83-17, that split. And that's why last year, people's taxes went up so dramatically high, because it was a shift in 4% of the total revenues, and it was borne mostly by the residential properties. And what bothers me is exactly what Mrs. Bailey has pointed out. If you look at that graph, and you go back and you watch how the trend has gone on the increase in values on commercial properties as opposed to the increase on residential properties, the spread is tremendous. I for one, can't imagine that commercial properties couldn't have been valued a little bit steeper than what they were valued over these past 5 and 6 years. The trend is tremendous on the residential property. But if, like what she said, there's 103% increase in values on one and only 30% increases on commercial properties, it really throws all the blame onto the residential, all the tax revenue cost onto the residential properties. And if you watched last year real close and you look at all the tax assessments, you'll find that people in new homes, because they're already at a fair market value as high as they probably can possibly go, the real brunt of that increase of 4% in revenue being paid by the residential properties went to the homeowners with homes between $200,000 and $300,000. And their tax rates, and their tax bills rather, went up probably somewhere between $400 and $600. Commercial properties tax bills went down, and the high-end houses with $1 million homes stayed the same. So I just think there should be an explanation from Dick, and he's a good friend of mine, by the way, as to why those types of trends are taking place, because the homeowner is getting killed on that particular issue.
Follow along, Dick, if I may, before you respond. There's no question that that's occurred, and I think that the comment you made at the outset, which is it's based on market, which moves over time.
No, I understand that.
And if you look at what's going on and you look at that impact, and there's no question that those people, the older neighborhoods, if you will, the older neighborhoods in town bore the brunt of that change, because the market in those neighborhoods, I mean,
No, and
the
I
turnover
understand
was
that, Mr. Murphy.
tremendous.
But last year, not to just dwell on that, but last year, one particular property, and I don't know if you refer to the same one, but one particular piece of property out here on Main Street sold for $225,000. That same piece of property, 1 month later, was for sale for $650,000 by the new owner. So I mean, so there's a comparison. I mean, that was probably 150% that the new owner tried to sell it for.
Let me ask you a question. Did that property, commercial property, since sell?
No, it hasn't sold
Hasn't
yet.
sold? Yeah, so,
But on the same note, they've had some offers very close to that number. I think you know the one I'm referring to.
I know, it's a south one.
Yeah.
On Route 28, I know it quite well. There has been no transfer on it, and until something transfers like that, I can't really consider it an indication of value. Offerings are the expectation of the seller to sell a property, and that's what he'd like to get. Whether he gets that is questionable. We have had some other commercial sales on Route 28, which are indicating that there is a trend there that bears watching. Also, I don't want to note that one sale does not a market make. You have to have several sales to indicate a trend. You can't just take a trend from one offering. As far as Mr. Smith's original question regarding the $200,000 to $300,000 properties increasing substantially, unfortunately, North Reading has become a very popular place to live. That tends to be the buy-in end for the community. It's the lower end of the range, unfortunately. And during this time period, there were very few properties in that range on the market, and there was an awful lot of pressure to buy into town, and those properties went for very quickly for close to asking or sometimes above asking price. And that is an established trend, and there were several sales in that range that indicated the values were very strong and were increasing substantially, and have increased since.
Chairman, can I ask just one more question?
Follow on?
Yeah, just to follow up, I noticed when he began his presentation, he said that there was an interim reval this year of 5% on average. I think that's what he said.
5 to 6%.
I, for one, in this community, didn't even know we were gonna have another reval this year. I know we had a reval last year, we had an interim reval the year before, of 15%, and we had a reval last year, a total reval at the time, and I don't even know if the Board of Selectmen knew it was a reval this year, but that looks like another 5%, and it looks like the increase and the worth of the town has gone